Hello, my name is Peyton Laney, and this is Improving My Interpersonal Communication Skills, Part 2. I noticed I did not film myself reading Part 1. This is here to clarify that. I'm going to send you my document with everything on there that I'm about to read off and make a video of me explaining myself. Improving my interpersonal communication skills, progress reflection. In Part 1 of this assignment, I focus on improving my skill paraphrasing. I chose this skill because I often respond too quickly in conversations or debates, especially when I am not fully educated on a topic. This leads to misunderstandings, assumptions, and sometimes frustration. Paraphrasing, as I defined in Part 1 of the remodel, is the act of restating someone's message in your own words to show that you understand. Research shows that paraphrasing reduces confusion and makes speakers feel heard and valued. Because of these improvements, I decided to slow down, listen with intention, and practice paraphrasing my everyday conversations. Over the past week, I practiced this and kept track of my progress. Below are my data checkpoints, reflections, and outcomes based on my efforts. Day 1, progress checkpoint, initial efforts on July 21st, 2026. During my first day, I mainly focused on slowing down and trying to paraphrase simple conversations from friends and family. I noticed right away that paraphrasing felt awkward. I kept worrying about that I was repeating them or mocking them. When I tried it in a conversation with my dad, who was stressed out about being laid off from work, I said, "So you feeling stressed out because Mike won't let you haul any coal this week?" My dad responded positively and said, "Yes, exactly." That moment surprised me because it showed how quickly paraphrasing can clear up confusion. One thing I learned during day 1 is that paraphrasing requires active listening, not just hearing words within a conversation. According to communication research, active listening makes paying attention to both a person's message and their emotions. I noticed that I listen only for the main point and skip over the emotional parts. When I started paying attention to tone and feelings, my paraphrasing became more accurate. I also asked my mama for feedback. She told me when I paraphrased her words within a conversation between me and her, it made her feel like I was actually trying to understand instead of rushing to respond. Those words encouraged me to keep practicing even when it felt unnatural in my conversations. Day 2, progress checkpoint, my adjustments were made on July 22nd, 2026. On day 2, paraphrasing started to feel more natural, which was very surprising where it was only my second day of practicing and putting in more effort. I adjusted my approach based on my feedback from yesterday. One change was focusing on emotion-based paraphrasing, not just factual paraphrasing. In my words, emotion-based paraphrasing is when you reword a sentence while keeping the same meaning but changing or emphasizing the current emotional tone based on what outcome you desire. Example: instead of repeating only the content of what somebody says, I tried to include their feelings. If the person I'm talking to says, "I'm tired of dealing with so-and-so," I would respond with something like, "It sounds like this situation has been awfully draining for you." Not only would this make a person react as in, I was really trying to listen to them, this made people open up more in our conversations. Another adjustment that was made on my end was practicing and paraphrasing during disagreements. This was much harder for me because my original instinct was to defend my point or explain myself inside immediately. But when I paused, listened, and paraphrased first, the conversation became much more calm. Most, if not all, research that I've looked at, paraphrasing during conflict reduces defensiveness and increases understanding, which is very important. I noticed this when talking with a family member about a very sensitive topic. Instead of reacting quickly, I paraphrased their concern, and it helped us avoid an argument. I also reflected after conversations to see whether my paraphrasing was successful. Sometimes I found out if I missed important details or focused too much on the literal meaning instead of the emotional meaning after conversations. These reflections helped me improve each day up until my last day of writing, which was today. As well as I have confidence now that this skill I have improved on will help me throughout my life and future conversations. Reflection on my efforts and my outcomes. Looking back on the past 3 days, I can see clear improvements in my communication. I am more patient, thoughtful, and aware of how my responses affect others. Several things surprised me during this process, such as paraphrasing is much harder than it sounds. It requires slowing down, listening, and resisting the urge to respond immediately. People respond positively to paraphrasing. I expected people to think that it was strange, especially where I'm from, but instead they felt much more understood. Paraphrasing reduces conflict. When I paraphrase during disagreements, conversations stay calmer and much more respectful. Feedback from others influenced my approach a lot and motivated me to keep improving on this. When people told me they felt heard, it motivated me to keep practicing this skill. When someone pointed out that my paraphrasing sounded a little too robotic and I was just repeating what they said back to them with barely any tone, I adjusted it by making it sound more natural and conversational instead of robotic. This is where the emotional paraphrasing comes into play. I was more successful in situations where I had time to think, such as casual conversations. I adjusted my emotions as in how they were feeling and to help them understand, or to make me help understand what they were saying. I struggled more in fast-paced debates or emotional conversations because my instinct was to respond too quickly. Even in those moments, my improved paraphrasing helped me slow down and avoid misunderstandings. Overall, my practice worked very, very well. Even though it was a short amount of time, I see that I have improved greatly over the past 3 days. I understand that I have much more learning to do in order to master a skill like this, but practicing daily, reflecting after conversations, and focusing on my tone, it'll help me improve very, very fast and steadily. I feel confident that my paraphrasing will continue to strengthen my communication skills and help me build much better relationships in my future. Thank you.